holy mackerel, King Charles, you've got to get her off that royal website. And I'm not even joking now, because Meghan Markle has now formally endorsed one of the biggest online trolls of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This is the care package to the notorious JTB, and trust me, Markle knows exactly what this man is all about. So we now have a ludicrous situation. Look, she's even using the royal site, but we have a ludicrous situation where a former member of the royal family who claims to be all about online welfare is now backing one of the biggest internet trolls of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This is unsustainable. And finally, it started to sneak out into the mainstream media because you know I've been talking about this man for a very long time.
Oh my God. Dan, are you okay? Seriously? Are you okay? Ladies and gentlemen, the Duke of Delusion has completely come unhinged. You've got a former royal commentator standing in front of a camera demanding King Charles remove Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, from the royal website because she sent me a thank you gift after wishing her and Prince Harry a happy anniversary. Do you guys see how insane that is? Dan Wootton, a man fighting for his life against obscurity, used to be one of the biggest royal commentators in the UK. Then he became the headline. Years of controversy, allegations involving catfishing. This is the level of integrity you're dealing with. And these people wonder why the public thinks the British tabloids are completely unhinged. Because in the middle of this performance, Dan Wootton calls me one of the biggest trolls of Catherine, Princess of Wales. Okay, Dan, prove it. Show me where I troll Catherine. Not where I defend Meghan. Show me where I troll Catherine. Because if there's a video of me doing that, I'll take accountability and apologize publicly. The problem is, there isn't one. There never was, because this entire story is built on the same thing most tabloid stories are built on. Lies, lies, lies. These people aren't living in reality anymore. They're trapped in an outrage economy where every Meghan story has become a 5-alarm fire. And that's where they start attaching labels to people. Troll, bully. It's formulaic at this point. The funniest part of this whole thing is that it backfired because people got to watch the gossip industrial complex operate. They watched the lies. They watched the outrage get manufactured. And outside of that little bubble, people looked at the entire thing and said, these people sound insane. The British tabloids thought this story would damage Meghan. Instead, they reminded everyone why nobody trusts them. It went from one repost, a repost, to now me bullying Catherine. And to the people who read and believe the tabloid trash, I genuinely feel sorry for you. You are being manipulated through lies because they know you're stupid enough to believe them. And they know they can profit off your stupidity. And that's the read. If you like your tea hot, share it, save your seat, and follow for more. This is the Notorious JTB, notoriously opinionated, signing out.
Well said, Notorious JTB. You know what's funny about this whole situation? Somewhere out there, a person received candles, honey, and a thank you note, and somehow that turned into a 5-alarm emergency on certain corners of the internet. Seriously, imagine explaining this to a normal person. What's the scandal? Well, Meghan sent a gift basket. And that's it. At some point, even regular people have to stop and laugh, because when your blood pressure shoots through the roof over scented candles, maybe the candles aren't the problem. What really stands out here is how predictable the cycle has become. Meghan could rescue a puppy from a storm drain, and somebody would write a 3,000-word article asking whether the puppy was consulted beforehand. She sends a thank you gift. Suddenly we're hearing demands, petitions, outrage, investigations, and speeches that sound like they're announcing the fall of civilization. Come on. Most people are worried about rent. They're worried about fuel prices. They're worried about whether their paycheck will survive until the end of the month. Then they open social media and discover grown adults are having a meltdown because a woman sent honey. Honey. Not a hostile takeover, not a political coup. Honey. That's why so many people found JTB's response hilarious. He basically held up a mirror and said, "Do you hear yourselves?" Because once you strip away all the dramatic headlines and angry commentary, the story starts looking less like a scandal and more like somebody desperately trying to turn a mosquito into a dinosaur. And that's the part that regular people notice. People aren't stupid. They can tell when a story has substance and when somebody is trying to squeeze every last drop of outrage from something that should have died after one sentence. Meghan sent a thank you gift. End of story. Roll credits. See you next week. Instead, some commentators keep acting like they're trapped in a never-ending escape room where every clue somehow leads back to Meghan. Candles, Meghan. Honey, Meghan. Clouds in the sky, somehow Meghan again. At this point, it's less journalism and more a full-time hobby. The funniest part is that every new attempt to create outrage often ends up giving Meghan more attention. It's like watching someone repeatedly step on the same rake and then act shocked when a handle flies up and smacks them in the forehead again and again and again. For many ordinary people watching from the sidelines, this isn't even about royal drama anymore. It's about common sense. If someone sends a thank you gift, most people say, "That's nice." They don't immediately start drafting constitutional amendments. They don't call emergency meetings. They don't act like Western civilization is hanging by a thread because somebody received artisan honey. The reaction ends up looking bigger than the actual event, and that's why these stories keep backfiring. People can smell forced outrage from a mile away. No amount of dramatic shouting can change the fact that a basket of gifts is still a basket of gifts. So while critics were busy treating candles like evidence in a royal crime drama, plenty of people were sitting back, shaking their heads, and wondering how on earth we got here. Because if kindness is now controversial, the outrage industry may have finally run out of fuel. And honestly, that's probably the funniest part of all. The thing that made JTB's response hit so hard wasn't that he came charging in with some grand speech or a giant thread full of complicated arguments. Nah, he showed up with one tiny question, a question so simple that it made the whole controversy wobble like a plastic chair with one broken leg. Where's the proof? That's it. That's the question, and suddenly the room got very quiet. Because for all the shouting, all the finger-pointing, all the dramatic headlines and social media outrage, people started noticing something important. Everybody was talking, nobody was showing receipts. It's actually kind of amazing when you think about it. A claim gets repeated enough times and some folks start treating it like an established fact. Then somebody finally asks for evidence and the whole thing starts looking like a group project nobody actually completed. JTB basically walked into the middle of the chaos and said, "Cool story, now show your work." And honestly, that is exactly how regular people think. If your neighbor accuses somebody of stealing their goat, the first question isn't "how angry should I get?" The first question is, did anybody actually see it happen? Simple, normal, common sense. But somewhere along the line, common sense started feeling like a revolutionary idea. That's why so many people connected with his response. They weren't cheering because he was defending Meghan, they were cheering because somebody finally pressed the brakes. Somebody finally said, "Hold on, before we start building castles out of rumors, can we check if there's even a foundation underneath this thing?" And that's where the whole outrage factory runs into trouble. Because outrage moves fast, facts move slower. Outrage screams, facts ask questions. Outrage wants you angry by lunchtime. Facts want to see the paperwork. But that's exactly why it matters. Without proof, you're basically asking people to buy a car without opening the hood. You're saying, "Trust me, bro," and hoping nobody asks any follow-up questions. Unfortunately for the outrage merchants, JTB asked the follow-up questions, and suddenly what looked like a giant scandal started shrinking, fast, like one of those expensive sweaters that accidentally went into hot water. What was left? A lot of noise, a lot of assumptions, a lot of people acting extremely confident about things they couldn't actually prove, and regular people notice that stuff. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Because most people don't care about online feuds nearly as much as commentators think they do. They're busy, they're working, they're paying bills, they're trying to survive Monday. So when they see another giant controversy built on speculation, they start rolling their eyes, again, because they've seen this movie before. Same script, same villains, same dramatic music, just a different day. That's why this moment felt different. JTB wasn't playing the usual game. He wasn't trying to outshout anybody. He wasn't trying to create a bigger controversy. He simply asked for evidence. And somehow, that turned out to be the most powerful thing anyone said. Funny how that works. In a world of hot takes, the strongest move was asking for receipts, and once people started looking for those receipts, they realized the cash register might not have been connected in the first place. That's when the whole performance started falling apart, because somebody finally checked whether there was an argument to begin with. What happened next was completely predictable. The moment regular people saw what was actually being presented as a controversy, it started looking less like a serious issue and more like a desperate bid for relevance, and people noticed that. You can only sound the alarm so many times before everyone asks, okay, but where's the fire? This wasn't some major scandal or shocking revelation, it was a story that many felt was being stretched far beyond its limits, and once the joke started, the game changed, because outrage can keep a story alive, but laughter can kill it. Suddenly, people weren't questioning Meghan, they were questioning the people pushing the outrage. That's a huge difference. Most of us are busy dealing with real life, work, bills, family, and everything in between. We don't have the energy to treat every Meghan headline like a national emergency. What many people noticed was the double standard. When similar situations are judged differently depending on who's involved, trust starts to crack, and once people start spotting those cracks, they can't stop seeing them. At some point, the criticism stopped feeling informative and started feeling performative, less genuine concern, more attention-seeking, and that's why these stories often backfire. The harder some critics try to make Meghan the story, the more people end up asking questions about the critics themselves, because if the argument is truly strong, it shouldn't need endless drama to keep it standing. And at the end of the day, that's what makes this whole story so bizarre. A thank you gift became a controversy, candles and honey became the subject of endless outrage, and somehow a simple act of appreciation was treated like evidence in a royal crime drama. Meanwhile, regular people are sitting back wondering if we've all accidentally wandered into a parody. Because here's the thing, when the headlines become more dramatic than the actual event, people stop taking the outrage seriously. They start asking questions, they start noticing the double standards, and they start laughing. And once people start laughing, it's very difficult to get them angry again. So maybe the biggest lesson here is simple. If your argument can't survive without exaggeration, it probably wasn't a very strong argument to begin with. Thank you all so much for watching. I am your host, Miles. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, candles and honey should not be treated like evidence in a royal crime drama. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and let's all try not to launch an international investigation every time somebody sends a gift basket. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching this podcast. I'm your host, Miles. I really hope you enjoyed. Thanks for supporting this channel. May God bless you all. And thanks for supporting Harry and Meghan.